Bishop Frank, can you tell us some story, one or two, three story about friendship in your life of priest, of bishop? How was it important for you in your spiritual life to encounter with people from our other religions?
Shortly after the World Trade Center was attacked in New York City, I, as the primate of the Episcopal Church of the United States, wrote a letter to my community saying, above all, be careful about demonizing our Muslim brothers and sisters. If anything, reach out to them because they are extremely vulnerable right now. Shortly after that, I had to go to a meeting in Florida, and I got up early one morning to walk along the beach, and I had my Russian prayer rope with me. And as I walked along the beach, I noticed coming down from one of the side paths a man who looked Middle Eastern. And there was a frisson of anxiety within me. And I thought, this is very interesting, Frank. You just wrote this letter about not being afraid, and suddenly you've been caught in a little bit of deep fear that you have.
You were alone on the beach?
I was alone on the beach. So I walked on, and the man came down and began following me. And he got closer and closer to me, and finally he was beside me, and he spoke. And he asked me if I was reading, which I thought very strange, because of course I wasn't reading. And I said, no, I'm praying. And he said, what are you praying? And I said, I'm praying a prayer from the Christian tradition, the Jesus prayer. And he said, what is the Jesus prayer? So I recited it, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. And then we got into conversation. And he finally asked me who I was. And I said, well, actually, I'm a bishop of the Anglican tradition. I'm the primate of the Episcopal Church. And he said, well, I'm actually an imam, and I'm the director of the Mid-Florida Islamic Center. And then we had this intense conversation, and I realized that he had seen this Russian prayer rope that's very similar to the beads that often Muslims use, their prayer beads. So he obviously had assumed, but wasn't sure, whether I was Muslim. Mm-hmm. And so we had this conversation, and afterwards I thought, isn't it amazing that prayer is what brought us together? If I'd simply been walking on the beach, he never would have approached me, but he saw this sign of prayer, and that drew us together. And a couple of years later, I learned that his father had been killed in whatever country he had come from, because his father was seen as somewhat progressive in terms of his own interpretation of Islam. And so I was able then, remembering that intense encounter, to write him and express my sorrow at his father's death, and to assure him of my prayers and the prayers of my Christian community. So that was a wonderful moment when God brought out of hiding, you might say, a kind of residue of fear that I wasn't even aware of, and made me face it, and then took me beyond it, all through this very human and intimate encounter at dawn on a beach. So that's one experience, and I will give you one other. When I was in Chicago, as Bishop of Chicago, I formed a very close friendship with a rabbi. And when I told him that I was going on sabbatical to be in Israel for 10 weeks, he said, you must go to the tomb of Abraham and pray for me. So when I got to Israel, much to the, what would I say, anxiety of people who were conducting my program, they said it's very dangerous to go to Hebron and all the rest. I said, I have to go because Rabbi Shalman asked me to. So I went, and I remember standing in front of the tomb of Abraham, and to my left, a group of men were engaged in the study of the Quran, and to my right, a group of Jewish women in a sort of vestibule that had been turned into a synagogue were praying. And I heard, these voices, and I thought, here I am. Here is Islam, here's Judaism, here's Christianity, here's Abraham, our common parent. Why is it that we can't, with more generosity, see one another as beloved children of one Father rather than enemies. So that was, for me, a transformational moment. It didn't involve, well, it involved the intimate friendship with my rabbi friend in Chicago, but his friendship and his request that I had to honor put me into this situation where I suddenly had the children, all three of us, present. And it made me think at the time, is the reason for the three traditions, from God's point of view, which of course we can't really know, but is this God's way of saying, no one has the absolute truth. I am beyond definition or containment in any one tradition, even though I've revealed myself in Judaism, I've revealed myself in Christianity, and I've revealed myself uniquely in these three religions, but to remind them that they all are special, but no one can say, I am the final word.
In your first example, and in a way, the friendship, it was not a real friendship because you didn't know this man before.
No.
But this sort of friendship improve yourself. How I can be open and not open to the other. Have you grown in a context of openness for the other religions, or you come gradually for this openness?
Well, I think both my encounter with my rabbi friend in Chicago, where I finally called him my Abba, because he was a man of deep, deep wisdom, and so we were intimate, very intimate. We had lunch regularly, and he would pat my hand, and I would, it was just a wonderfully intimate relationship, and that made me, when I went to Israel, very eager, though I was in a very Christian context, very eager to. He had a whole list of rabbis for me to meet. I want you to meet this person and this person and this person. And I dutifully contacted them and saw them. So I felt my friendship with him had sort of expanded my desire to know the riches of Judaism more intimately. And certainly my encounter with the imam on the beach in Florida made me, because we did meet at the level of the heart. It wasn't that we had weeks of conversation, but prayer. That did it. We were both together in the presence of the divine. He recognized something, I recognized something. When he spoke, I thought, this man is not just, he knows what I'm doing, but who is he and why is he, stopping me? Because he wanted some sort of encounter too.
Have you been educated in such openness? Or when you were a child, you were also open to the other religions, or it came with your priesthood, or with?
It came largely, I think, when I became a bishop, and particularly when I became the primate and would travel to different parts of the world, and find myself, with teachers of other traditions, representing the dominant culture. I was no longer the dominant culture. Christianity was not the dominant culture. And finding so many of these people I met incredibly gracious, eager to sort of respect however the divine had encountered me, and conversely, out of their graciousness, I was eager to know how the divine so obviously worked deeply within them. And I also saw common themes, compassion, love, everywhere. Also, I did have the experience once of the Parliament of World Religions when it met in Chicago. Not that formed many friendships, but it certainly opened me to the diversity of ways in which the divine imagination has been, worked into various symbol systems and scriptures. And I find, if anything, Christianity makes me eager to encounter your encounter. Encounter how you name the divine, if there is a divine at all in your tradition, or how you name mystery or transcendence, and how you then practice communion with that reality, or how you root yourself in that reality.
Do you feel that the encounters with other religions transform your faith?
Oh, very much.
Or change your faith even?
Well, I think I certainly have a much more expansive notion of God. And so, when we say God is the creator of everything, I really have a sense of, not just trees and flowers and humanity, but the riches of spiritual traditions as well. I think this is all a mystery that is enormous, and it's an invitation to each one of us to have our hearts cracked open to divine reality that comes to us in so many ways.
And you feel that you are more close now for your Christian faith, for Jesus Christ.
Yes, I feel, yes, because this is a little bit theological. The Logos in the prologue of St. John's Gospel is the creator, the agent of creation. And that's said again in Hebrews, Colossians, 1 Corinthians, and the Nicene Creed, that the second person of the Trinity is the agent of creation. So that says to me, from a Christian point of view, the Logos is in everything, everywhere.
And you feel that personally?
Oh, I do, very deeply. And so, all right, what shape are you taking in this tradition or this tradition? Or I listen to someone and think, you're showing up again. You're surprising me, and you're wearing a sari, or you're wearing a colorful gown of some kind. And for a moment I say, what is this? And I think, it's you again, catching me by surprise.
And you don't lose at the same time your relationship with Jesus.
No. If anything, I feel that my Christianity is deepened, and it's out of that confident sense of my own identity as a Christian that allows me, with complete freedom, to encounter the other on their own terms. I don't have to defend Christianity. I don't have to defend Jesus, because he's within me. I feel that very, very deeply. So
you said something very beautiful, freedom. Do you think that friendship could drive us to be more free?
I do think that interfaith friendship, because it makes us confront maybe our bias, our suspicion, our prejudice in some way, or in my case, as I was describing, a fear that I wasn't even aware of. And so the embodied reality of the other, who's sort of there in compassion and love and availability, you have to say, wait a minute now, what do I need to let go of? What's imprisoning me from an authentic encounter with this person? So I feel God draws us out of bondage and freedom through the reality of other people who embody different dimensions of God's own presence.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Okay?
Wonderful.
Okay.
We try to